Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Monday, September 23rd, 2019. Hope everyone had a great weekend. We got some space weather news, got some climate news coming up, all kinds of stuff to talk about. Actually, there is one thing that I would like to speak on as we take a look at our solar conditions for the night. Sun is blank again, 20 days in a row. That's 191 days for 2019 without sunspots. Again, 191 days without sunspots in 2019. KP indices are at a 0, and that's a 24-hour max of a 2. And TCI has also dropped just a little bit down to 4.18. It was at 4.21. But solar wind sitting at 316.1 kilometers per second with a density of 3.9. And taking a look at the SDO in motion, that coronal hole that was Earth facing turning away, we should get the effects from that any hour now. And right behind that, we have another large coronal hole that should have an impact on our Earth's magnetic field sometime around the 27th or 28th of September. So we'll continue to monitor that as well. And actually, let's go ahead and go over to the space weather section of the grandsolarminimum.com. We'll check out any action whatsoever going on, if there is any kind of indications of sunspots that could be developing here in the near future. This is always a good indicator, but during a minimum, these active regions are short-lived. So it's hard to really gauge. Sometimes you'll see some really bright regions near the negative 180 and they fall apart by the time they get to the eastern limb. So right now we don't see anything really significant other than this large coronal hole. There's some coronal hole action at the below the equatorial region, I should say, of the sun at the negative 90. So just at the eastern limb, another coronal hole could be possibly affecting Earth's magnetic field once again. So the coronal holes are coming in steady at this point, and there is one active region that we can see below the equatorial region right around the negative 120 mark. So again, quiet as far as solar wind speeds, but when it comes to coronal holes, the weaker the sun's magnetic field is, the more coronal holes, the weakening of the corona we'll see. And this is just typical up and down from typical minimum conditions. TSI on September 15th, 2019 came in at a 1360.697. TSI is barely budging up or down at this point. This is pretty tight as far as the change up or down. It has not been much of an up or down as we continue to watch the TSI crawl. And quickly, I just wanted to address a concern of some folks out there. There was a video or some information that was passed on into the YouTube community, and the information, there are a lot of things that I think Mari said it best. If you're gonna make bold claims, bold accusations, you need to be able to back it up with the bold proof. Meaning, I mean, this has got to be some serious data. And what made me think about the quotes, the claims, especially the claims, the particular claims that we were talking about were the low glow mode by the 2030s, and also the ice age that was written on this chart. Now, I have to admit, I haven't watched the video. I'm only basing this off of the graphic that I had seen that was trying to claim that we would be in an ice age by 2045. Now, the reason why I'm addressing this tonight is not because I'm here to say this person is wrong, but as always, whenever other channels who are supposed to be in the GSM community, whenever they post things like this, it always seems like we're here to clean it up or answer the questions that they have. And it really is sometimes frustrating to be able to have to deal with stuff like this because it confuses people. I think here at the Grand Solar Minimum, everybody understands what our message is, and we are admitting that we're going to be dealing with some challenging climate. They're saying Maunder minimum like. It could be a little worse. It could be a little better. It's really the unknown. But we do know to prepare for a Maunder minimum type Grand Solar Minimum. At best, at least we'll be ready for it, right? But to make claims, big ones, to say things as if our sun is going into low glow mode by the 2030s, I need to see the proof. And more than just a David Lapointe video. No disrespect to David Lapointe. He does great work. His videos are fascinating. And I would love to explore the possibility of what exactly is a low glow mode. A lot of people we've asked privately don't understand the term. And when you deal with people like Valentina Sarkova, and she tells you, all right, so if you believe in her work, in other words, all right, the Super Grand Solar Minimum cycles, okay, we all know, and thanks to Mari, she helped clear this up for me as well. But Super Grand Solar Minimum, let's just give the basic definition of a Super Grand Solar Minimum. It is a cycle that is recognized every 2,000 years. And this is the part that Mari helped me with as well. At the very beginning of the 2,000 years is where we are coming in out of the minimum of the magnetic, as far as the weaker part of the magnetic field of the sun. That is the minimum part, the very beginning at the 2,000 year cycle. So the Maunder minimum happened to be at the beginning of this super grand solar minimum. So for the first 1,000 years from the beginning to the middle of this 2,000 year cycle, this is technically where the magnetic field, believe it or not, as weak as they're predicted to be in this grand solar minimum, but this is the part of the the super grand solar minimum where the shields increase, and so do temperatures. But once we get to 2600, now this is all explained by Valentina in her interview as well. But once we get to 2600, that's when we start to descend to the weakest point of the sun's magnetic field strength. And then at 2000 years, 3600, approximately 3600, 3700, will begin the next super grand solar minimum. So when a person who claims to understand the work of Valentina Zarkova, who acknowledges it and even uses the term super grand solar minimum in the chart, but yet predicts events that don't relate to her work, is confusing to some of our viewers. Now, I don't know if this is a speculation or if this is a gut feeling or if this is all emotions. I've heard some wild claims from this channel recently. There was a person who wrote a book talking about negative 100 degree Fahrenheit temperatures and 300 mile an hour winds continuously. That's none of my business. But I just wanted to clear up to you folks out there that if you do believe in Zarkova's work and you follow what the actual definition of super grand solar minimum is, you wouldn't predict an ice age, a full-blown ice age, to begin in 2045. It doesn't go with the work that Valentina has done. And that's basically all I wanted to say, is that the person making this claim, I'm not saying they're wrong for making this claim, but to use the term super grand solar minimum by saying welcome to the super grand solar minimum, when we've already begun the super grand solar minimum, and that began around the Maunder minimum. Okay, we are in now grand cycle number 2. These grand cycles, 350 to 415 years. There's 5 of these in each super grand solar minimum. So again, I just wanted to make it clear. We got a lot of emails today. We got a lot of questions about what is this timeline. This doesn't sound like the work of Valentina or John. And it's because that's not what Valentina and John, that's not what their work reflect. That's not what they base their information off of. They, again, Valentina Zarkova is the creator of the term super grand solar minimum. She is the one that phrased that. Am I right on that? That was her. She is the one that discovered it.
She has, it's a cycle she discovered, and
so
I don't know.
Basically, well, my point I'm saying is to use a term by a scientist who did the work and then to misrepresent the work by stating it.
Do you want me to pull up that chart?
No, that's fine. I'm getting ready to move into our articles here. I was just about
I've already explained to people there's 5 grand minimums in a super grand
cycles. Right. The 350 to 415 years. But my point is that when you use the term super grand solar minimum, you are using a trademark of Valentina Zarkova. So if you really believe in that, then you know that there is no coming ice age. Because that's not what Valentina's paper says. And that's not what the super grand solar minimum, we're definitely not at the beginning of it, okay? That's if you paid attention and read the paper or even listened to the interview. Sorry if I'm coming off a little cocky and I'm not that sympathetic toward your feelings, but it gets a little old it feels like some folks out there, and I'm not going to name names, but some folks out there would like to discredit our channel. But yet we're always here to clean up the mess, the confusion, the disinformation. I get it. Views are down on YouTube. Yeah, everybody's going through it. It's a period of censorship. So we don't create new ways to get views. We stick with what the facts are. I think you folks have noticed that as well. Sure, we've done a few more live streams, but that's also to help press the message. They're trying to bury this channel, just like other channels that talk about cooling. They're trying to bury us. So it's important now more than ever to continue the drumbeat as strong as possible. But at the same time, we got to have some integrity. And there's got to be an understanding out there. You just don't fly around terms just because it sounds doomy and give it whatever your definition, what you want it to be.
Jeff Porter's like super extra duper grand solar minimum.
That is funny, actually. Like, someone's gonna come up with that super extra large grand solar grande minimum. I mean, that's what it feels like some of these channels are ready to do now. Like, they're just going to invent their own terms. It's a freaking circus, man. And I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to, like, sit here and piss on your Monday evening. But it's annoying. It's annoying because if they really paid attention to these papers like they say they do, like Zarkova's work, and that's why some other channel out there who doesn't like Zarkova's work, because it's not doomy enough for his channel. It doesn't get enough views and clicks because, you know, it's got to be doomy, you know, or no one's going to want to watch. I get it, you know. It's unfortunately, we're in the wrong business. We're telling the truth. And views are views. We're definitely not going to manipulate or bend anything, though, to increase or incite any kind of panic or urgency. There's already enough urgency right now, guys. What we're heading into is bad enough. All right? It doesn't need to be exaggerated. We don't have any strong proof of a low glow mode, so show me the proof, peer-reviewed, linked papers, all right? Not YouTube videos, but real peer-reviewed papers that confirm about, A, the low glow mode, that we are heading into this low glow mode by the 2030s, and I want to see where it's confirmed that we are heading into an ice age. And, hey, we'll be square. I'll come out and say I was wrong, and the proof is out there. Wasn't aware of it. But according to John and Valentina, the foundation of this channel, the foundation of the Grand Solar Minimum education, I don't think there's an ice age coming in 2045. I think it's going to be really bad weather, really cold winters, longer, shorter grow seasons. Yeah, we're going to see some record snows. We're going to see some record cold temps. Absolutely. But to come out and say an ice age is to me, that is clearly showing that you don't understand the term super grand solar minimum. and you didn't read the paper, or you just didn't follow it. And that's fine. You don't understand. I'm not knocking you for it. I'm just trying to help you understand. So hope you understand now. All right, let's move on, folks. I hate it when I do that. I really do, because I'm not trying to waste anybody's time. But it's you know, when you have
deal with a lot of alarmed people.
We get people who are constantly asking us these questions, and then referring to these other channels who, you know, they're okay people. I like them. I mean, I don't hate them. I just wish they would stop
sensationalizing.
Yeah.
God damn it! Stop doing that.
I mean, we've already had to deal with the whole Shivelich volcano, the whole, you know,
Shivaloo.
Whatever. I'll call it Shivelich because it was full of shit. The whole situation was horse hay. You know what I mean. All right, Monday. Let's get into some articles, folks. What do you say? Stop talking about this. Who's right and who's wrong. I'm just saying, guys, read between the lines, okay? If you see something extreme like that, go back to the foundation of the education, which is Zarkova, which is Casey, which is Jack Eddy, all right? And that's a pretty safe group of people. You know, Heinrich Finsmark and Dr. Jasper Kirksby, that's a safe group of people to kind of just follow and stick with them, you know? Unless we start seeing all these peer-reviewed journals coming out about low-glow mode. Otherwise, I want to see the proof. And please do not misrepresent Valentina Zarkova's work. And I'll tell you something right now. I say that because Mari has developed a wonderful relationship with Valentina. We consider her a part of the family at this point, as much as Zarkova and Mari communicate. So, you know, I guess in a way it was kind of personal. It offends me. People that reject her work in full and then take bits and pieces just to help benefit themselves. And cause confusion, really, in my opinion. But I'm just a guy in a suit. So let's get started over here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Wow.
I never wear suits.
Wow, Mari, that's whew. You know,
she was wearing a
she went there.
onesie the other night.
She went there. She went there. She went there with the whole Greta thing. So here we go. I asked her, "You think that shirt's too dark?" And she's like, "What shirt?" So I mean, there's your answer, folks. So I wanted to show an interesting video, just a little bit of an idea of how things went with that old climate strike. Guys, check this out. This is embarrassing that we actually have to share the planet with folks like this. All right, so there's people screaming 10 years to fix the climate crisis. I mean, there's people trying to get to work. This gentleman actually confronts this woman and tells her, say, "Hey, look, you know, you're preventing." In the area they were protesting, this was a predominantly, it was a diverse part of town. And this gentleman was trying to make the point that you are preventing young minority people from getting to their jobs. They're trying to go to work. And this lady's like, "We don't care. We don't care about what their job is. We don't care because right now this is so important." She's now trying to explain to this guy that this is her constitutional right to block traffic. They want climate justice and they want it now.
When do we want it? 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 When do we want it?
Excuse me, I was wondering if I could talk to you for a moment.
What do we want?
The random horn players.
What do we want?
I mean, this reminds me of a deleted scene from the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where Hunter S. Thompson drops 80 hits of acid and is wandering the streets of DC.
I'm just wondering why you chose a protest method that disproportionately disproportionately affects low-income
Madness all around us, I
workers
tell you.
to get to their job, and will be penalized very harshly.
Income workers of color probably are not driving. They're probably working, taking the metro.
Okay, super racist right there. Did you hear what this guy just said? He says, I guarantee you that the minority workers of this town are not driving. They're taking public transportation. Let's roll that back.
Be penalized very harshly.
Low-income workers of color probably are not driving. They're probably working, taking the metro and cab.
Actually, a lot of them have to drive to work very early. Yeah.
Even if they are, this is more important than your job today.
This is more important than your job today. This is the attitude from these climate change protesters. This is more important than your job. They don't care about if your views line up with theirs. They don't care what that inconvenience causes. All right? They don't care. This is bigger. Again, if I went around telling people the same thing about grand solar minimum, you think anybody would want to listen? Absolutely not. Nobody would want to listen. Why should we? Why should we listen to somebody who wants to force us? They are shoving this down people's throats. But just to show you here, this is just straight up chaos, unorganized,
So you would say, as a middle-aged white
not safe,
female, you can
standing
tell
out in
workers of
traffic.
color that they should be late to their
This
job.
guy is actually a racist, if you ask me. This camera person was assaulted.
It's for climate change, I think.
And I bet you if you asked every one of them how they got to this climate change rally, they would probably tell you that they all drove. So, honestly, that climate strike, yeah, in some areas there was impressive turnout. And then in other areas, it was the clown show. And that's what it was here in DC, folks. Don't let anybody fool you like they won anything here in DC. This was the clown show. Embarrassing, weak, pathetic turnout of whatever they want to call this climate strike, this climate change strike. Oh, man. Anyway. So that's that. Guardian, no climate protests were authorized in China. Interesting. And yes, they're one of the worst as far as the CO2 emissions. Let's read from here. Across the globe, millions joined the biggest climate protest ever. Young and old alike took to the streets in an estimated 185 countries to demand action. Millions of people demonstrated across the world yesterday demanding urgent action to tackle global heating, as they united across time zones and cultures to take part in the biggest climate protest in history. In an explosion of the youth movement started by the Swedish schoolgirl Greta Thunberg just over 12 months ago, people protested from Pacific Islands through Australia, across Southeast Asia and Africa, into Europe. No protests were authorized in China, the world's biggest source of greenhouse gas emissions, but Zheng Qi-wing of China Youth Climate Action Network said Chinese youth would take action one way or another. Chinese youth have their own methods, she said. We also pay attention to climate, and we are also thinking deeply, interacting, taking action, and so many people are very conscious of the issue. Sounds like a load of horse manure, but hey, that's her answer, and she's sticking with it. There was an action, however, in Taiwan where dozens of representatives from primary schools, high schools, and universities gathered in the capital to launch a petition to press candidates in the upcoming presidential election to lay out concrete policies to mitigate climate change risks. Imagine what would have happened if President Trump had banned nonviolent climate protests. The media would have been in an absolute frenzy, rightly so, about the suppression of freedom. China doesn't have the right to protest, so despite China being the largest CO2 emitter in the world, the lapdog Western media gives them a free pass. And 100% true, folks. We see articles all the time about China and the air pollution and the smog and just how poor quality the air is in parts of China. That yes, they are the largest CO2 emitting nation in the world. Absolutely. And they're not even doing this climate change protest. Now, you could say that's bad for their business. Well, they burn so much coal. Why would they be a part of this protest? They'd be a hypocrite, right? Or they just know that no matter how much CO2 they put into the atmosphere, it's never going to be enough to drive the climate, to hurt anyone. Looking at this protest sign in the back with the red fist. This all, guys, have you ever seen the movie 12 Monkeys? I mean, that's what this reminds me of. That we are on the brink of this outbreak of, well, in the movie 12 Monkeys, it was a virus that wiped the entire planet off the face of the earth. Interestingly enough, though, the movie kind of hinted that the future holds for us a very cold time. So, anyway, interesting stuff. But again, just another example of the hypocrites being hypocrites, and the left-wing media, you know, they'll criticize President Trump on this trade war stuff, but nobody's jumping down China's throats about not participating in climate change protests. It's kind of makes you wonder, things that make you go, Here's some science for you guys. Plasma flow into your sun's surface explains sunspots and other solar phenomena. This is according to the University of Washington. For 400 years, people have tracked sunspots, the dark patches that appear for weeks at a time on the sun's surface. They have observed but unable to explain why the number of spots peak every 11 years. A University of Washington study published this month in the Journal of Physics of Plasma proposes a model of plasma motion that would explain the 11-year sunspot cycle and several other previously mysterious properties of the sun. Our model is completely different from a normal picture of the sun, said the first author, Thomas Jarboe, a University of Washington professor of aeronautics and astronautics. I really think we're the first people that are telling you that nature and solar source of magnetic phenomena, how the sun works. The authors created the model based on their previous work with fusion energy research. The model shows that a thin layer beneath the sun's surface is key to maintaining the features that we see from Earth, like sunspots, magnetic reversals, and solar flow, is backed up by comparisons with observations of the sun. The observational data are key to confirming our picture of how the sun works, says Jarboe. In the new model, a thin layer of magnetic flux in plasma, or free-floating electrons, moves at a different speed on different parts of the sun. The difference in speed between the flows creates twists of magnetism, known as magnetic helicity, that are similar to what happens in some fusion reactor concepts. Every 11 years, the sun grows this layer until it's too big to be stable, and then it slews it off. Jarboe says its departure exposes the lower layer of the plasma moving in the opposite direction with the flipped magnetic field. So interesting that this plasma that is just under the sun's corona, the reason why we see our maximum sunspots is because so much of it is built up beneath the sun's corona that it begins to release it, and that's how it is released when there's too much of this plasma that is developed. If the two hemispheres rotate at different speeds, the sunspots near the equator won't match up. Actually, I skipped something here. When circuits in both hemispheres are moving at the same speed, more sunspots appear. When the circuits are different speeds, there is less sunspot activity. The mismatch, Jarboe says, may have happened during the decades of the little sunspot activity known as the Maunder minimum. So interesting enough that he is connecting, without this being about grand solar minimum or anything like that, he's talking about the differences in speeds and how that may have happened during the Maunder minimum. So interesting read here, folks. I'll leave a link on our website, but just another piece of the puzzle and interesting research being done here at University of Washington. Again, I highly recommend you guys take a look at this. Their contact information is on the website as well for any questions. MSNBC, climate protesters with a noose around their necks. Wow. I'm not really going to go into this word for word, but the point of this article, where is the... There we go. These individuals here are protesting climate change by sticking a rope around their necks while standing on a block of ice. Now, there are a lot of people influenced right now, Greta being one of them. And how do we know that there isn't any more children out there with autism, Asperger's, whatever, maybe just a slight case of, a bit of unstable mentality, basically, mental health, I should say, unstable mental health. And they look up to these people as their climate change heroes. And what happens if, one of these kids actually does this on a real block of ice and something horrible happens? These people start killing themselves. They're making sacrifices now. The idea of these people are saying they would take it as far as sacrificing their lives to get the attention that man is causing climate change. This is absolutely 100% fear porn. From the mainstream media, from the left. I don't see anybody on the grand solar minimum side of things, the real grand solar minimum community. I don't see anybody standing on blocks of ice with nooses around their necks. I don't see anybody that follows global cooling on YouTube. I don't see those guys standing in the middle of traffic, although I wish some of them would, but I don't see them doing it. They're not standing in the middle of traffic holding up people's daily schedules. You don't see that. This is a horrible example. And people on the left, the people that follow the AGW crowd, should really have someone in there that has some kind of half brain and can zoom out and say, whoa, this is way too much. Way too much, guys. The nooses, that's it. That's where you cross the line. This part right here. This could get somebody hurt or killed by accident. All because they were just trying to stand up for climate change, to stop it. And to see if someone actually did injure themselves or kill themselves over this cause would be another tragedy in itself. And I've mentioned earlier in previous shows, if this ever gets out, if we ever get 100% disclosure that we've been lied to about the climate for several decades, I mean, is it possible some of these people could be brought up on murder charges just by the disinformation and the lies they knew about? Again, it'll be interesting to see when the IPCC comes out with its next report that includes solar particles and TSI. Hopefully we don't get this fudged version that says, oh, it's not going to do that much after all, see? I think a lot of us are going to see it firsthand and in real life. The radical green road to Venezuela, poverty, misery, and dictatorship. A lot of people feel like that Justin Trudeau is seeking that road. He's implying that they need to start changing the future of their economy in the next 20 to 40 years. If you notice, the Green New Deal actually was quoted by saying the interesting thing about the Green New Deal is it wasn't originally a climate thing at all. Do you guys think of it as a climate thing? Because we really think of it as how do you change the entire economy thing. That'll definitely change the economy. They're admitting that. They're admitting they would kill the economy that we have right now. We've read you these climate claims before. Big lifestyles changes need to cut emissions. Where's my favorite one? Talks about personal use of vehicles. Basically saying that people are going to have to get used to having less. You better learn how to make do with life with less. Yeah, sorry about this. I was not prepared. But anywho, if you read the article, you will see where these claims that have been made over the past about climate and about how ridiculous these policies are, you really see the truth that this is about telling you what to eat, where to go, how to go, when to go. I mean, the Green New Deal itself is basically, in my opinion, is the Bible for dictatorships. Green energy and CO2 abatement schemes driven by false fears and catastrophic global warming have severely damaged the environment and squandered trillions of dollars of scarce global resources that should have been allocated to serve the real immediate needs of humanity. Properly allocated, these wasted funds might have ended malaria or world hunger. The number of shattered lives caused by radical green activism rivals the death tolls of the great killers of the 20th century. Stalin, Hitler, Mao. Radical green advocates similar extreme left tolerantism policies are indifferent to the resulting environmental damage and human suffering. And if unchecked, radical environmentalism will cost us our freedom. And that is exactly the bottom line of the Green New Deal. I was watching, first of all, Whopper is now the Impossible Whopper. It's advertised as, oh, this is made from plants. Just try it. You'll love it. Pretty soon, it won't be try it. It's what we serve. We're making a difference to climate change. Then I was watching another commercial how there was an individual grilling out in his backyard. One was beef hamburgers. The other was the plant hamburgers. Oh, they look alike. Oh, they're both plump and juicy. Oh, wait till you taste the burger made of plants. It's predictive programming, and it's already happening in advertisement. So they're telling us, forget the beef. You're going to cut back on that. And there's other quotes in here where it talks about how, people are going to have to figure out how to make do with less. So the government wants to control every aspect of your life, guys. So if you're thinking about voting Democrat in the next election, remember, 98% of the Democrats support the Green New Deal. If you surround yourself with Democratic leaders in next year's election, you are basically signing away your freedom, and you have no right to complain when things go down the tubes, not only with the climate, but with the government itself. The Green New Deal is the introductory of how we become a social country, a socialist country, I should say. We're already pretty social, if you ask me. Everybody talks about too much online anyway. I meant to talk about this last week, but I was a bit under the weather. We didn't do a show. There was a protest where Mark Morano was giving a presentation about climate change. And where is that video? Sneak Peek University, as I said right here. Mark has a lot of links, folks. It's I wanted to show you parts of it because it shows you the rudeness that Morano went through. It had to be stopped. No, I'm not going to find it. That's unfortunate. I thought I had the right link available for you all guys, so I do apologize. The protesters played music and alarms and held up signs in the windows from the outside, chanted throughout the event. One of the protesters, sporting a clown costume, interrupted Morano's presentation by blowing an air horn. Morano's talk was titled "Climate Emergency Canceled. Politicians Cannot Legislate Weather, Storms, and the Climate." As tensions rose, the Georgetown University Police Department arrived at the event. 2 officers came inside and asked those who had been disrupting the event, including Ferguson and the protester dressed as a clown, to step outside. They refused to leave the room, prompting the Georgetown University Police Department officer to say he would only ask so many times. When asked to present their go-cards, the students did not comply, and Tober, who appeared to be one of the leaders of the protest, said the group would not accept hosting of these speakers on campus. Maybe this is the video. Here we go. Let's watch. You've turned it down. All right, so we'll leave the link. This is not working out the way I wanted it to, folks. I do apologize. But in the video, you will see where Marano gets interrupted. Right at the tail end here, I believe. Police officers are there asking people that are being disruptive to leave. Of course, they're not complying. But just another example of why would I take you serious if you're coming to a protest dressed as a clown? I've already described one of these climate strike protests as a circus. And yet here is another example of what a joke the people who support global warming as man-made are really making this topic. They're mocking the topic, basically. They're minimizing it, the seriousness. It's almost like they're paid to cover up this lie. And I know, can you pay 4 million people to participate? Well, sure. Money can accomplish anything, right? But yeah, anyway, so an example of someone who is very respectful and who is not cocky and who is not snobbish at all, very neutral, very kind, intelligent person, Mark Marano. Actually, #1 on the climate denier list, which is hilarious to me. He's not a climate denier. He denies man-made global warming. That's it. We all believe in climate change. There's no doubt in that. Nobody is denying climate change. It's just how it happens. Gore's quest to become fake meat billionaire lobbies for climate policies that limit meat, while his firm invests $200 million in meat substitutes. Well, look, it's that old saying, you gotta have money to make money. Look at old Al. I know it's superimposed, but that's proper. Again, we're seeing large commercials now about eating plant meat. Burger King is the first fast food chain to do it. I wouldn't be surprised if other fast food restaurants were doing the same thing and not even telling us. Guys, check out our t-shirt store. Yes, Mari did it, folks. There was mixed emotions about this. This is not insulting her, but she is, right now, Al Gore's #1 puppet. Most definitely. All right, so here's some disappointing news from weather.com. 2 things. 1, they're using NOAA weather map right here. No, we're not playing you. Yeah, you're going to go on pause. That information is from NOAA. It tells you that in the video. Temperatures could be as warm as 20 degrees above average in the south late this week. Highs are expected to be in the 80s and 90s. Record highs are possible, especially during the second half of the week. This is the south and the southeast, guys. Yes, it'll be a little bit warm too across the Central Plains and parts of the southern Ohio Valley. But look at the hysteria. The Weather Channel is just, oh my God, it's so hot. Where's fall at? And here we go. They're using NOAA. Now, October 3rd. Guys, pay attention to this right here, please. This secondary dark shade of red here. That means 70% above normal from now until October 3rd. Now, I'm going to read to you. I'm going to read to you tomorrow's temperatures. And you tell me, from the 23rd in upstate New York, and let's get the handy dandy blue arrow out here. According to AccuSource Weather, this is where we are right here. That tip of that arrow is, okay? Tomorrow, September 24th, high temperature of 69, low of 43. Wednesday, September 25th, high of 71. Thursday, the 26th, high of 72. Friday, 27th, high of 70. Now, again, NOAA is saying that we are going to see temperatures in New York, upstate New York, 70% likely above average. Saturday, we get a high temperature of 77. That is a spike. But on the 29th, it's a high of 69. September 30th, 65 degrees. October 1st and 2nd are 71. And then the 3rd is 67. The 4th is 62. The 5th is 59. The 6th is 62. And the 7th is 57 degrees. I can tell you that these temperatures that we're getting ready to be forecasted are not 70% above average, or even a 70% chance of above average temperatures. Those are right about average temperatures. Wouldn't you say, Mari? Low 70s, high 60s is about average for this time of the year.
It's actually better usually.
So I'm confused on what the Weather Channel is doing. But they were using Watson to do their Outlook work, and it's almost like they got lazy this month and just said, let's go with NOAA. It's hot. Let's go with that. Let's get people thinking it's going to be hot. And I'll show you here in the GFS just in a bit how hot it's going to be. Flooding inundated streets of Phoenix. Boy, these are some dramatic pictures in areas that we don't normally see floods like this. Possible tornado was reported near Phoenix. Cars were stranded. Streets were flooded in Apache Junction. The rain is the remnants of Hurricane Lorena, which was on the Baja side. It hit Mexico. Schools in Apache Junction were dismissed early. And here is some dramatic footage of the flooding there. So the Southwest, Arizona, flooding. I mean, who hasn't gotten flooded this year? The Midwest and the Northern Plains have got flooded out. The Southwest has been flooded out. Texas has been flooded out. The Deep South has been flooded out. The Carolinas has been flooded out. Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, parts of South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma. Oh yeah, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana have all experienced flooded out conditions. The Northwest and California areas, well, we've had mudslides and torrential rains as well, but this year that's about the only part of the United States that hasn't flooded out yet. And I can tell you here in the Northeast, we've seen increased amounts of precipitation. We're not quite to this kind of flood levels, but we've also witnessed our fair share of rainfall as well. And just another example of cosmic ray, what it can do to your atmosphere, what it does to the actual weather. The more cosmic rays we have in our atmosphere, the likelihood of having heavy precipitation amounts falling during a storm event, especially when cosmic rays are abundant. And usually that's fresh after a solar storm or during one, which we will see here in the coming days as well. A weak one and then possibly a stronger one by the end of the week. Here's a look at that national radar right now. As you see, we're still dealing with showers and thunderstorms in Arizona and in New Mexico. Parts of Texas also seeing some heavy rain showers towards Oklahoma. Other than that, the Northeast, I know we had a round of severe storms that just went through the Lake George area. Impressive lightning, heavy rain, gusty winds, lots of leaves on the ground, folks. That was probably the most impressive part. Nothing too crazy though. All right, let's take a look at our GFS outlook. First, the precipitation part of this. There is Hurricane Jerry. We're watching Hurricane Karen. And just like in the morning report, not much showing up on the GFS right now. But the last bit here, towards October 6th, you guys can see it in the Gulf. And that is this system right here just kind of develops out of nowhere. Could this be Tropical Storm 13 that's right behind Karen? Possible, but this one is showing up in the last two runs that I've seen, and unfortunately it is tracking towards Texas and bringing more rain to the Galveston, Houston, Beaumont area. Now, this is way down the road, folks. We're talking October 9th. I mean, we're still well 2 weeks out. But we don't see any immediate danger for any kind of hurricane activity at this point. Possible Karen could be a disruptive storm that could go across the Bahamas, but nothing like Dorian. But what I want to mention is the amount of snowfall that we got coming here. Check this out. Montana, we talked about this a couple shows ago where we thought we might have some snowfall in early or late September, early October. Here it is again. This is some heavy snowfall across the state of Montana for the 28th of September into the 29th, hanging around through the 29th. That's heavy snow, folks. That's 3 to 5 inches of snow a day. So we're talking maybe a 6 to 8 inch event through most of Montana by the 30th of September. The system finally moves away, but then another low pressure develops in Wyoming, more snow in the southeastern corner of Montana, and by October 2nd, there is a massive cold front, and this will be very, very visible across the temperatures here when we take a look at that. But so some very impressive storm systems that we are going to be dealing with, low pressure, especially snow in the northern plains, heavy rain in the Dakotas. This is late week this week into the weekend. It's hard to imagine we're going to be talking about possible snowstorm here in Montana, but it's looking that way. Lots of rain in the Great Lakes as well with Minnesota, and then another line of heavy rain and thunderstorms moving across the Central Plains, across the Midwest, and this will usher in a cold front. But boy, that's some heavy rain. It's going to be moving through parts of Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, and possibly the Great Lakes, the UP of Michigan. And behind it, on the back side of this, we're already starting to see these rain on the front, snow on the back. Not quite enough cold air yet for that to be a consistent thing. Let's have a look at our temperatures, shall we? So NOAA says from here on out, let's start from the 23rd. This is back a little bit. So from the 23rd, and there's your warm temperatures today, tomorrow's highs. I mean, I get it. The South is hot. But here's September 26th. The area that the Weather Channel was indicating of 70%, actually the Weather Channel had this area that I'm showing right now in the 100% chance of above average temperatures. I'm from Southwest Ohio, and I can tell you right now, low 70s is about average for October in Southwest Ohio for our high temperatures. Now it's a little warm in Ohio on the 28th. The Ohio Valley, Tennessee, Kentucky, parts of the Northeast, just on the East Coast. The western part of the Northeast is staying in the low 70s, mid 60s. That cold front moving in from the Northwest. And this is where our weather is going to really start to change, folks. Right here on the 29th, where they're dealing with that snowstorm. Look at the cold air spilling in from the Arctic through Canada, Alberta, BC area. Montana looking at highs overnight lows in the teens. And daytime highs also possible in the teens and higher elevations. 24 degrees is the sweet spot on September 30th. 24 for the high and snow. But NOAA wants to keep telling you how hot it's going to be. And again, Ohio, this area right here, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, congratulations, you have now entered your Indian summer, October 1st. But Nebraska, Kansas, daytime highs, that's not going to be the case. 40s and 50s. Yeah, so your grow season is coming to an extreme halt on October 1st, folks. 30s and 40s are widespread for the highs. And by the time we get to October 4th, that heat is going to be in the corner of the southeast. Daytime highs are going to be widespread across the United States in the 50s, 40s in the northeast, 40s for daytime highs. Even Texas getting down in there, 63 degrees near Dallas, Texas. October 6th, that cold air continues to filter down in from Canada. Summer's trying to make that one last push in the south. But I think fall definitely has a full grip on the lower 48 anyway. starting October 1st. And we see a lot colder air moving in. Look at that. Folks that live in the Adirondacks, upstate New York, going to see a proper freeze definitely by October 8th. Temperatures in the 70s across the Central Plains on October 9th. That's a good warm day for October 9th. So yeah, we do see a hot spot in Ohio and Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, and the South for a few days. But nothing to, write President Trump and say, hey, global warming's real.
People say you're ignoring the Northwest.
Why? Because they're getting so cold? I mean, look, the Northwest is always cool and wet. So, I mean, Oregon and Washington is looking at normal temps. It gets a little bit colder here on September 29th. But, right here, yeah, that's concern. September 30th. Some cold weather. So we will watch it. We'll watch it. Hey, Northwest, you guys are troopers. You're used to highs in the mid-50s with rain. October, that's nothing unusual for people in the Northwest, and it's nothing unusual for people in the Northeast to be in the 50s and 60s. But we are watching much colder air moving into the lower 48 in the very near future, is all I'm saying. And NOAA, once again, just ignoring solar forcing altogether. Here's a good look at our weather over the next few days across Canada. Colder air obviously present there. We see a lot more snow going on up in Canada this time around. Let's check out our brothers and sisters over there across the pond. You guys are also going to be inundated with plenty of rain showers on your own, as it seems like all these hurricanes that keep missing the United States, these low pressure systems are just being fired at the UK over and over and over again from here on out through October. So very wet weather for our friends across the pond there in the UK and in Europe across it. And let's take a look at temperatures too while we're here as well. Mari, you want to come over here and say hello to everybody in the chat before we sign off for the night?
Sure.
Into the night. Temperatures appear to be cooling down quite nicely in the UK. They're in the 40s and 50s already, Fahrenheit wise. So definitely those heat waves have disappeared. Well, is that safe to say? Here towards the end, October 7th, we see a brief warm-up.
Can't you be more sensationalistic and get an anomaly map and abuse it so
well, that's what
people are entertained?
That's what World Severe Weather was doing.
We have a video about anomaly map. I call it anomaly map abuse. So, You tried to make the weather as exciting as possible, and I thank you for that, Jake.
Are you being sarcastic or?
Just giving you crap. Everyone else wants to give you crap, but I figured I'd do it too, because I'm the best at it, Jake. Anyway, hello everyone in the chat. Quite interesting night here. You would think it's a full moon in the chat. Doug, I guess you must have had some kind of page with a bikini girl on it, and that just set Doug into a whole nother world.
Yeah, that right there.
Yeah, I guess.
You want to complain, go to What's Up With That, folks. It's the advertisers. And this is part of the problem that we're dealing with as a cooling community. Not just What's Up With That, but our channel as well. We have to be constantly alert of the ads that are being promoted on our website. Mari's had to flag a few herself.
Well, I think
dating sites. I think they do this on purpose.
Google does it.
To make these channels... Well, hold on. They do it to make these channels look less credible.
I do. I agree. And that's why I wish we didn't have to rely on ad revenue from them, because they dictate everything. And they actually are reducing our rank on our website now. Not only are they hurting us on YouTube.
Well, that won't be for too much longer. I'm not,
yeah.
That stuff's coming to an end. So
anyway, Randy did a super chat and asked if the GISP graph is the most accurate representation of temperature for the past 2,000 years, to which I answered, it's hard with temperature data, because what most people, when you're looking at the big picture, you have to be zoomed out. And a lot of these ice core samples, they're not worldwide reads, they're just regional reads. So you have to sort of look at these temperature readings from all over the world and sort of piece the data together as separate bits to try to understand the bigger picture. It's much more complex than just looking at, you know, one set of ice cores and going off it. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I want to know too. I got heckled by someone about not covering this major cold front that's coming through. I don't know what cold front you're talking, but yes, it's going to get cold in Montana, Iowa, and Idaho. But folks, I'm not seeing anything out. I'm sorry, I'm such a buzzkill here, but this is normal fall weather across the northern plains, northeast, and northwest. That spot of cold, yes, is very cold in Montana for a few days in October. Very, very cold. I get that. But other than that, I mean, it's not like we're drastically shifting into winter right now. We're expecting snow across most of the country. This is a typical fall weather pattern change.
I'm just reading through the chat. Let me go through the other super chats. Thank you, Susan. Mahalo nui loa. You know, Hawaiian
I don't know.
I don't know exactly, but I butchered that super chat. But hola. I mean, what is it? See, I'm not good with Hawaiian stuff, I guess. Mahalo, right? Is that it? Anyway, thank you very, very much. Sam, thank you for the super chat as well. He put, I started a new hobby that's very labor intensive, foraging. It's super fun, but there's been unintended consequences. And the chat's been so crazy, Sam. I didn't catch what your consequences are. I hope you didn't have a run-in with poison ivy or something like that. Let's see. And then I already told you about our Northwesterners. They were, you know, a little upset, but you clarified that. I think it's important when you're covering topics like this to be objective and not sensationalize things that aren't there. We have enough to be concerned about, and we try very hard to be legit and just call it as we see it accurately, you know, with whatever the view counts on the video at the end of the day, that is what it is. You either take the message or not, and we're not gonna manipulate or try to skew the truth to try to get farther up the YouTube ladder of life to make people want to watch us. Well, I guess that's boring.
What goes back to the beginning when I was saying, again, if you're going to act like you understand the work of a certain scientist, please make sure that you're not mixing or confusing definitions and terms, because it kind of looks silly when you use the term super grand solar minimum, welcome to it, when it's already begun over 400 years ago. And we all know, according to the super grand solar minimum in its graph and the work that was done by Valentina Zarkova, we're not going to be looking at ice age in 2045. So again, let's see the proof before we start making these big bold claims here. It's confusing people. It's not helping. I'm glad your finances are doing well from it, but it's not helping the education of these folks.
I was just saying that you were the diplomatic one, and it's probably good that I didn't get on the mic first.
Probably.
You know how I am, Jake. And some people didn't like my Greta shirt. I get it. It's a disturbing image, but it's very true, and it's thought-provoking. And I'm gonna, when I get my Greta hoodie, I'll have to get on camera and show you guys, because that is one of my favorite shirts next to the cosmic rays and the I love CO2. I like doing t-shirts. I wish I had the whole collection in the house, Jake. Hint, hint. Christmas is on the way.
Yeah, there you go. Christmas is around the corner.
But that's all I got. I mean, I didn't take a whole lot of notes. Missouri Man did say we were talking about how they didn't do the climate strike, and he said China studies CO2 levels and they have nothing to do with climate change. That's why they've said we're heading to a 400-year cooling cycle.
Yep.
And they're building coal-fire power plants as fast as possible.
Good for them.
I mean, it's quite evident that China's preparing. Look at you, Jake.
All right, thank you, Mari, for your time and patience with the folks in the chat. We hope everyone enjoyed it.
I did the best I could.
With that being said, folks, we'll see you in the morning for our solar update report in the morning, and we'll be back live again Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, we will talk soon. Take care, everyone.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform, buy a t-shirt, or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.